Do you enjoy the harvest of Missouri through food, fuel, or fiber? Interested in strengthening your community or making a difference in the lives of others? You're in the right place. This is Stand for Ag with Missouri Farmers Care. Join us for thoughtful conversations around the intersections of farmer, rancher, and consumer interests. Grab a seat, press play, and join the conversation.
Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Stand for Ag here with Missouri Farmers Care. I am recording this episode from the Missouri State Fair with our friends at Missouri Wine, and I have one of the great people from there, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you here today. My name is Jim Anderson. I'm the executive director for the Missouri Wine and Grape Board. I've been director for over 25 years for the Wine and Grape Board. And so it's been exciting to be at the Missouri State Fair this year and promoting the wines at the wine tent. But we also have some one-on-one classes that we're teaching. And of course, we're around the grounds promoting and expanding the wine culture here in the state of Missouri.
Yeah. So Jim, could you tell me a little bit about what the Missouri Wine and Grape Board is and kind of the way they work in Missouri agriculture?
Yeah, the Missouri Wine and Grape Board was really founded in the early 80s. And we're based off of really a wine tax. 42 cents a gallon, we get 12 cents of that tax comes to the Wine and Grape Fund. And so out of that money, we sit there and promote the wine industry, the wine culture. We are a board and a commission here on the state of Missouri. There's a number of boards and commissions across state government, but it's government, governor appointed, Senate confirmed. And so it's exciting. They have to be made up of wine or grape growers, or it could be a wholesaler distributor, also could be a wine merchant or a grocer, but a media person. But so it's well-rounded out there to promote the Missouri wine industry. And so our goal really is out there to expand the wine culture in the state of Missouri. We do have a research marketing side. We work with the University of Missouri. We call it the Grape-growing Institute, where we have enologists and viticulturists there. And they're kind of the best way to describe them as extension people. They're out there working with the commercial wineries, commercial grape growers, but also helping beginning grape growers also that want to get into it. And I think that's the important thing, having the extension role out there, because you have a lot of good horticulturists, agronomists in the state of Missouri that can be out there in the field, especially in some of these rural areas, getting that first start for some of these beginning grape growers. So it's important, but also having that support on campus to really to support that wine and grape industry.
Yeah. So you're talking about the wine culture. What is the wine culture in Missouri?
Well, it's growing. And, when you think about Missouri, you think about a lot of times, a lot of the German influence, you think of beer. But really over the last 25, 30 years, we start really seeing people getting excited about wine. So, and it really goes back to a lot of our history. Missouri has this rich heritage of winemaking. We've been in the winemaking business now since about 180, 185 years. It's exciting this year. Stonehill Winery, it's probably the second largest one in Missouri, but it turned 175 years old in June. So that's exciting awesome to see that history of Missouri agriculture.
So just thinking about, you were talking about the rich history that we have. Can you kind of share the history of Missouri wine, whenever it started, maybe the origins that it had in Missouri and those strong influences, especially in Hermann, Missouri, which I'm sure you'll talk about.
Yeah, it's neat. Missouri was this melting pot really in the 1800s. You had the German migration coming into the Hermann area and a lot through the Missouri area, bringing with them their customs of growing grapes and making wine. And so that's how the Hermann area really got started. But also too, we have a little bit of French heritage because of St. Genevieve area. The French were kind of growing grapes in there. Of course, some of the Germans moved in there. So you had this heritage in St. Genevieve, growing grapes and making wine. And then in the later 1800s, you had this Italian movement kind of coming up through Arkansas into the St. James, Rosati area, bringing with them their customs, growing grapes and making wine. So you had this Italian movement by the late 1800s. So you had this, by 1900, you had this melting pot of great ideas. And so Missouri was known around the world about growing grapes and making wine. The World's Fair, there was, Missouri took a lot of medals in that competition. But and at the time, Stonehill Winery in Hermann, Missouri, was the second largest winery in the United States, third largest winery in the world. So it was exciting
Oh,
to
wow.
see that growth. And of course, Prohibition hit.
Mhm.
And when Prohibition hit, everything shut down. The grapes were destroyed. Wineries were shut down. And we kind of went into of course, with the Depression, and then into World War II. And then a lot of our service people, when they started coming back, that's when you start seeing the growth of the wine industry
Mhm.
really in the United States after World War II. The service people coming back were in Germany, we're in France, we're in Italy, Spain, all these areas that grow grapes, make wine, and have this history. So this rebirth started. And of course, we've seen that mostly on the West Coast, California, a little bit worse in Oregon. But then we started seeing this in the 60s in Missouri, starting coming back, growing grapes, making wine, this rich heritage that we had back in the 1800s.
This podcast is brought to you by Missouri soybean farmers and their checkoff. The Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council is a farmer-run organization dedicated to improving the profitability of the Missouri soybean farmer through a combination of marketing, research, and commercialization programs. The checkoff is committed to empowering Missouri soybean farmers through innovation. The council is run by the farmer for the farmer with 13 farmer leaders from across the Show Me State. To find out more, visit mosoy.org.
That's really awesome. So you talked about Prohibition. What was the creation of AVAs and that reinvigoration of the wine and grape industry?
That really was exciting. About 1980, the wine industry in the United States was really petitioning the U.S. government, and what oversees the wine industry is I call it tobacco control, or now it's called the Trade and Tax Bureau, TTB. And so what they started doing, like you see in Europe, in France, and parts of Italy, you see designated AVAs, that certain grapes are grown or certain styles of grapes are grown. And so the United States pushed for that. So in 1980, the federal government really put out the information. Little Augusta, Missouri, which is in St. Charles County, was the first one to fill out their AVA application. And AVA, the American Viticultural Area, it kind of goes with their terroir. We call it terroir, territory. It can be soil related, water, hill, aviation, different soil. So a lot of different things go into this that decides this. And so Augusta, Missouri in 1980 was the first one. So we beat Napa and Sonoma to the punch in 1980. So Augusta, Missouri is the first AVA in the United States. So it's exciting to have that history.
That's awesome. Norton is Grape Board established as it is today.
Yeah, what's exciting, Norton was really founded in Virginia. It was growing wild. It came with the Germans when they came out west, and they started planting in Hermann. And then the Italians also brought it with them. They called it Cynthiana. And the original grape, to confuse people even more, was Virginia seedling, where it was growing. A gentleman named Dr. Norton was the one who worked with it in Virginia and started cultivating it. And that's what we kind of pretty much know it by as Norton. And we made it our state grape in 2003. So it's exciting, something we're with the Missouri legislature on, and get that recognition out there, making it a state grape. So it's exciting to see what's going on out there with the wine industry.
So you talked about, Missouri wine is a very established industry in Missouri. We have a really rich history. What is kind of the state of that industry? Maybe the economic factors, some acreage, different varieties. What does that look like?
Yeah, the industry continues to grow. What's exciting here, a couple of years ago, we tried to do impact study about every 5 years, and COVID's kind of pushed it off a little bit. It's just been kind of unusual for everybody. So hopefully we'll get back on track here next year and do a new impact. But right now we're at $3.2 billion.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So people are surprised when I say we have 130 wineries, 1,700 acres of grape, which is going to be bigger than that. I know that because we're ready to do, we work with National Ag Statistics, especially the Missouri office outside Columbia. And so we'll do a new survey on that. So we know some more grape acreages in there. So 1,700 acres that are bearing, and all these, of course, are wine grapes. And so when you talk about that, 28,000 jobs. So people get excited about that when especially in the Missouri legislature, or when you're talking to business communities, CVBs, and you say, hey, that's how we impact the state of Missouri's economy. And they're like, wow, 3.2 billion, that's pretty exciting, 28,000 jobs. So it's not a small industry.
Yeah. So are there any more popular varieties?
Yeah, the Norton grape, as we made that state grape, that's probably our number one red grape.
Mhm.
Chamberson, that we're talking about here in a little bit, that won the Governor's Cup, is coming on strong. It's done really well in competitions. It's medium bodied wine, and it's coming more and more popular with people because it's more like a Pinot Noir style that's a vinifera. It's
Mhm.
kind of that characteristics. It's not the same grape, but it's some characteristics. And so it's exciting that grapes is catching on. But far as whites, and a bottle that I brought you is the Vigneault, and this
Yeah.
is Vigneault month, and we're
Yeah.
getting ready to start harvest in the United States.
Cool.
In Missouri, we'll probably start here this week, next week. Some
Mhm.
of them probably start this week, and how nice the weather looks.
Yeah.
And the Vigneault grape is our number one white grape, and it's from dry to semi-dry to semi-sweet to even late harvest style wines. That's very sweet, and so it's exciting that it's our kind of best way to describe it as a Riesling style.
Mhm.
Like I said, it has a lot of fruit characteristics and becomes real more popular with people. And like I said, we do it in so many different styles. So it's exciting. But we do French and American hybrid grapes. They're becoming more and more popular. Mostly you see that in the Midwest and the East Coast of New York, the Carolinas, Virginia. But more if, with climate change and weather conditions we're having, some of these French American hybrid grapes that we grow here in Missouri are doing better in other places too. So we're starting to see a lot of other states looking at our French American hybrid grapes in their states, but also looking outside the United States too.
Mhm.
So there's some excitement for French American hybrid grapes.
Yeah, that's exciting. So Missouri Wines does a lot. I'm sure you don't do it alone.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about your staff, kind of
Yeah.
what you operate with, and if there's any outreach that they do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. I got 5 staff people. I have 2 marketing specialists, the marketing director, and then an administrative assistant. And she's doing kind of the catch-all there in the office, and then I'm the executive director. So I'm kind of working with more of the administration piece, also 2 national things that affect the wine industry, but also work with the University of Missouri on our research and our extension programs up there at the university. What we do, the staff primarily is working on social media, brochures, promotional type efforts to expand the wine culture. And we find ourselves spending a lot of time with our ag partners. Well, that's what makes it fun. We're always seems like we're working with our beef industry council, the Missouri pork producers, corn, soybean producers. So we are out there working with our counterparts there, but also too, we work a lot with our division of tourism. We get over 800,000 people hit Missouri wineries a year. So tourism is a big part of what we are, agritourism. And that's how we bring it together. Because people say, when you go into the community of Herman, or if you go to St. Genevieve, if you go around the St. James area, it's about the wineries, the B&Bs. Also, too, you may have some natural things going on, like the Katy Trail or riverways, waterways that you can go ahead and canoe or fish. And so you start combining these things. So you got a tourism destination spot. And that's why it's important for agritourism, us work with that. So we find ourselves working a lot with the Missouri Grown Program, with the Department of Ag, because then there's some products that we can piggyback off, sell at our wineries, or they may want our product to be sold in some of their shops and stuff around the state of Missouri. And so when we come into an area, that region, that money stays in the region. And you look at Herman, Missouri, like I said, you look at some of these other communities, they're doing a wonderful job of promoting that community, and that money stays in Missouri.
Yeah, which is nice, which is great, especially coming from a small town myself. You know how vital it is for that small town business to be in your town.
John isn't just a neighbor, he's a friend. So when he started acting differently and when he wasn't coming to the coffee shop every morning, I knew something was up. The stress of farming is real and affects everyone. So I spoke up and suggested John get help from the Agri-Stress Helpline for Missouri, where trained professionals who understand farming were ready to help. The call was free and confidential, and now he's back at Morning Coffee Talk. Don't wait. Make the call or text 833-897-2474 or find out more on the Missouri Department of Agriculture website.
And while we're at the state fair, just kind of switching gears here, there's a spirit of competition.
Mhm.
So I'm sure winemakers have competition as well. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, very much so. And that's why we do the Missouri Wine Competition
Mhm.
in July. And of course, we really showcase that, really kind of kick it off here at the
Mhm.
Missouri State Fair. We do have the wine tent, and that wine tent does have a lot of the award-winning
Mhm.
wines in them there. We display the wines. And so the competition is exciting because this year, the Stonehill Shamerson,
Mhm.
2020 Shamerson won the Governor's Cup. So yeah, it's kind of bragging rights in the state, you
Mhm.
know. It's kind of like anything, I think, in agriculture. You
Oh,
always
yeah.
want to have the best of,
For sure.
so it's exciting. So, you know, we get that information out, and people, you know, they kind of rush out to the wineries and you know, purchase a couple cases of wine and, you know, put it in their cellars or what have you, or their broom closets, whatever they have. And they want to have it, be the first ones
Yeah.
to get it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they wrote a song, "A Little Dust on the Bottle Never Hurt Anything." And I'm sure
That's
that's the
right, yeah.
case.
Yeah.
So you brought some wine
Mhm.
today, and we're gonna taste it on the podcast. If you could explain what you have, you said the Chamberson, and then when it won, what time of year, and then how you guys market that throughout the year using the Governor's Cup.
Yeah, like I said, it's exciting. You know, it's exciting for Stonehill. Like I said, they had their 175th anniversary this year, and like I said, they're winning the Governor's Cup. And we'll, like I said, we'll probably promote that wine along with the best class winners at the governor's mansion
Mhm.
when we give out the trophies.
Mhm.
And so it's exciting throughout the year to be able to promote that product and let folks try it. And so it's important, like we do a lot of tastings, a lot of events, grassroots tastings, and try to expose these wines to people that they're, you know, and a lot of times maybe they haven't tried a Missouri wine. They've heard of it, or they think it's sweet or something. And so they get a chance to try these different wines. It really kind of educates them about what we're about and about our wines. And so by doing that, or talking about food and wine, and I think people are, they're really surprised by the quality if they tried Missouri, and maybe they haven't tried Missouri wines in 20 years. They're like, wow, this has really changed since I tried it 20 years ago when I visited a winery. So we want to welcome them out. We like for them to come to our tasting rooms where they have a chance to try the wines and they can get educated about the product.
Yeah, well, educate me a little bit about this product.
Yeah. What we got today is, this is a Stonehill 2020 Chamberson with Governor's Cup. And like with wine, as you can see, it's red. You know, this is a red wine that we have. It's going to be a dry wine. The Chamberson grape, as we was talking about, is a French American hybrid. And so really what you do is, when you smell the wine, first time you smell the wine, you're going to pick up some flavors. And a lot of times folks like, I know them flavors, you know, and what you're picking up, probably maybe a little bit of licorice in it. You're picking up maybe a little bit of cracked pepper, you know, just smelling it. Some of that's oak. You get a little bit of vanilla, and so this wine is oak. They use a lot of times French and American oak on their wine, and also do a little Hungarian oak. And so you'll pick up different flavor components with that oak in the barrel, since it's in the barrel. And like I said, this wine's aged a lot of times in the United States. We tried it about 2 years. It's just released. It's 2022. It's a 2020 when it was harvested. And so what you can do is go ahead and take a taste. And take a taste. And then what you're going to do, and you kind of roll it through your mouth. And you're going to pick up these different flavor components. So you're bringing in a little bit of air when you're kind of tasting it, hold it for a few seconds before you swallow. And your tongue, you're going to pick up like salts on your tongue, your sugars and bitterness. Your tongue has different taste components. So that's why you want to kind of put it around the mouth and then breathe in air and then hold it for a few seconds. Then you can go ahead and swallow. So you're picking up them flavor components, because it was talking about, oh, you might picking up a little bit of licorice. Oh, you may be picking up a little bit of raspberry or blackberry or or cherry. It pretty much going to be more on the cherry side, but
I'm getting a lot of cherry.
And so that's just kind of some of the part of that wine. That grape produces some flavor components, and that's part of the terroir. But if we're talking about grapes, or we'd be sat here talking about Missouri peaches or Missouri watermelons, same thing too, because you're going to pick up certain things in the soil. And so that grape variety is going to pick up certain components, and so that's what makes it exciting. And then you're going to go ahead through the fermentation process, ferment that wine. And like I said, in this case, it's a red wine, so it's going in barrels. It's going to be held for 2 years before it's released. But like I said, it's still a young wine, 2020. So it's going to age well. It's going to get a little better. And when I talk about medium body, it's just a structure. A lot of times, most of your red wines are medium or or going to be full body wines. When you get into white wines, they're going to be light, very light, or else sometimes medium body if they're oaked or something like that.
Hey, you want to know a secret? You can get a Friday feeling every day with dairy. In fact, it's as simple as going down the dairy aisle. Hi, I'm Jack Dill, a Missouri dairy farmer, reminding you to fuel your day with dairy. My winning game plan starts with milk. Milk helps you fuel up without that crash. It's a simple, easy source of protein when you need to stay energized. That's my secret. Make it yours. Dairy, fuel to win every day.
This message brought to you by Missouri Farmers Care and Missouri Dairy Farmers.
So what would this pair well with?
This Chamberson, that's what's great. It pairs with a lot of stuff. What we do with the Missouri Pork and the Missouri Beef Council is, red wine does go with white meat, believe it or not. So you could do this wine with some pork dishes. Definitely going to go great with beef dishes, with steak, other beef dishes. But also too, it's fun. You can still use it for barbecuing, with burgers and so forth. But then, we do a little bit with Conservation Federation too. We talk about wild game because Missouri's a big, it's getting close to fall, the hunting season. And so people think of venison, we think about duck, we think about goose hunting. And so there's a lot of these wines that are pair up good with that. So what I tell people when you talk about wine, you don't want a big bodied wine or wine with a real light. Say if you're doing a light salad, you want something that's going to match up with that salad, something light, so they compare. So if you're in just the same way, if you're doing a big steak, you don't want this really light wine. You want something that kind of holds up with structure. So I think that's the key thing. And what we try to stress too in our classes and when we go throughout the state doing grassroots tasting, we want you to enjoy the wine. You may not be a dry red drinker right now, but we want you to expose you to different styles of wine. So we'd rather have you drinking, a semi-sweet or a sweet wine than a Diet Coke, So that's what we're about.
I'm guilty of liking sweet wines. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but St. James blackberry wine I frequent. And that's probably one of my favorite ones if I just want like a light glass. But I do like the dry reds whenever I eat a steak. So it's nice to kind of learn a little bit about it.
And I think that's a lot of folks, when you talk about the wine industry, they're very intimidated by wine. They may have tried a dry red wine or a dry white wine that might have been heavily oaked for the first time, and it really turned people off. And I think as consumers, when you first trying things, you're going to start sweeter, and naturally then as your palate starts drying a lot, and like I said, you may never be a big red wine fan, and that's okay. But you may start liking white wines or semi-dry wines that will pair up with a lot of cool things. So that's one thing. Like I said, this is a kind of a catch-all wine. You could do it, like I said, pork and beef, but wild game. And then, like I said, you could still use it for just a social wine, and and you can still do it with pasta and stuff like that. It's still a fun wine.
So I, like I'm sure many of our listeners would love to learn more about the wine culture and maybe how to taste it with a more elite palate. So what maybe some resources that Missouri Wine has to educate people that we could get and read online or go to some events?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a number of events. A lot of times we do throughout the year. I think probably the easiest thing is go to our website, MissouriWines.com. And or they can give us a call at 1-800-392-WINE, WINE, and we'll be glad to send them information, the brochures. We have a lot of information blogs that we do about the wines, about food and wine, about pairing wines, trying to make it fun. So we're always trying to do stuff during the holidays, trying to do stuff, throughout the year about using wines and having fun with wines. But, we think of this time of year, especially July and August when it's hot, you have a lot of folks too that are doing sangrias with wines. A lot of our wineries do them sangrias with their wine, but also too, they do slushies too, which is refreshing. So a lot of our, guys have slushy machines. So it's exciting that you can go on a hot day, you still go to the wineries and you're like, hey, I don't feel like a Chamberson today, but I do feel like a slushy when it's 95 degrees. So it's important. And so a lot about what we do too, we try to teach too, is just how to hold your wines. Because a lot of times in the United States, a lot of our red wines we serve too warm and our white wines we serve too cold. So we try to, talk about, 45, 55, and 65. So if you're a big sparkling fan sparkling wines you want to put in the fridge for 3 hours, you get it down to
Okay.
about 45. If you love dry whites or sweet reds or sweet blushes and so forth, you definitely then want to put in the refrigerator for 2 hours and get it down to about 55 degrees. Well, most of us don't have cellars, so in the United States. So, if you have, like I said, a fridge or what you want to do before a company comes over, you have a big red wine, you want to go ahead and put it in the refrigerator for 1 hour and get it down to about 65 degrees. That's like really cellar temperature. Then you go ahead and serve that for your guest. It's at the right temperature. So many days I've had a wine, it's 95 degrees out and the wine's about 95 and it's real
hot.
flabby and it's warm. It's going to put off some off characteristics. So you do want to kind of serve that wine properly, just like you would serve your steak.
Yeah, I'm a medium rare gal, so
Yeah,
I need to follow the temperatures of the wine too.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to go over while we're on the podcast? Anything that we missed talking?
Well, I like I said, we're just glad to be with you today. It's exciting. And so that's what we're about. We're about promoting the wine, the wine culture. I think the best thing for your listeners is that it's just to go out and go visit wineries. And that's how you get educated about.
Yeah.
People come to me all the time, like, how do you learn about the wine? How do you learn about grapes? And even though my background's agribusiness and then in horticulture, it's just getting and trying the product. And I think once they start learning about the product, they have so much fun. And so many people have came to me because they was intimidated by wine. They start trying all these different wines, and then, of course, they start cooking with products too from our commodity friends. And then they're having so much fun. And I think especially with COVID over the last few years, coming out of that, and people just enjoying, it's tough to get the family together now. So it's kind of that. You hang out in the kitchen and dining room. We talk about the size of the kitchens now in the dining rooms than they were 30, 40 years ago, because people spend a lot of their time there. And so it's fun to kind of, like I said, be able to pair up the wines, have food, snacks, what have you, some apps, and try the different wines. And people just, like I said, they call me and say, Jim, we just had this party, and had the family over, we did this, or, for the holidays. So it's exciting to see that they tried it, tried some great recipes and had fun with their family. And I think that's what it's about.
For sure. Well, thank you for joining us today. And our listeners, I hope that you start cooking and drinking Missouri wines if you haven't started already. And again, visit their website for more information, how to maybe learn about it, or some great wineries to visit here in Missouri. Thank you so much for joining us this week, and we'll be back next week for another episode of Stand for Ag.
Thank you for joining the Stand for Ag podcast with Missouri Farmers Care. We're excited to bring you new stories each week. We as agriculturalists have a lot of stories to tell. Stories of resilience, grit, and stories of families that are united by their passion for agriculture. Each week, tune in for a new episode and join the conversation.